On the latest episode of the PCT podcast, we are joined by UEFA A licence coach Martin Hope, who is currently working in the female game. So without further ado, good evening, Martin. How are you?
Good evening, Mark. Yeah, really good, thank you. Not too bad, obviously, in a difficult pandemic at the moment situation we're in. But we only play with, obviously, the cards we're dealt with. So, no, not too bad, doing really well.
Fantastic. You mentioned there, obviously, we're in lockdown at the minute. How are you keeping during that? How are you keeping busy?
Probably the same as most coaches, if I'm being totally honest, in terms of trying to expand my knowledge, trying to help the players and the staff and the club at this moment in time, where obviously with the situation we're in, trying to make sure the players have got everything they need resource-wise, and to keep them obviously developing technically and physically away from the pitch, but also psychologically, because it's going to have a big burden on obviously them with not playing for so long and not training for so long. Me personally, just being on webinars and podcasts, listening to a lot, reading a lot about football and trying to understand myself a little bit more. Being able to review and reflect now on what we've been through now, and me trying to reflect on my season and where I've been in the last 12 months to 18 months, and then where I need to go next with my development, which has been important for myself. And then being able to just spend time with family and friends as much as possible. Obviously when restrictions have obviously eased. But yeah, that's been important for me. And I think this time we've got now is really important, especially for family and friends, because as you know, within football, when you're in an environment, a full-time environment, you don't really get to see as much as family and friends. So this time where the restrictions have eased, it's been important for me to spend some time with family.
Yeah, and again, it's something that we've spoke about with quite a few guests, is that it's just a bit of a chance to come away from the hustle bustle life of football and just maybe reflect on where we are. Obviously, for those that might not know what you're involved in at the minute, can you just give us a little bit of background of what you've been involved in this season, and obviously now with the season announced, ending, what you're doing?
Yeah, the role of now at this moment in time, it's changed. It's going to change slightly going into the new season, which I'm absolutely delighted about. But yeah, coming to Manchester United in January, into under 21s assistant coach role alongside Charlotte Healy, who's obviously the head coach of the under 21s. So coming to that role, and I've really enjoyed it, being able to be on the grass and coach a lot more, and being able to dictate on the pitch to the players, and being able to help them develop, most importantly, which is the most important part of that 21s group, is seeing those players develop and move forward, and not just develop as players, Mark, but develop as people. And can we give them the right skill set that if we develop a good person, I believe we'll get a good player. And if we give them the right characteristics and traits and we try and build them in, that we'll get the best out of these players, if you want to call them. That's been really good coming into that role as an assistant under 21s coach. And then from around, it was probably around February time when I come in, was just having the opportunity to be around Casey Stoney, the first team manager, to observe her sessions and observe her working with their players. Being able to be around their off the pitch work they do, if that's analysis, if that's well-being classes that they have, being able to walk into her office and have a conversation and be able to touch into her knowledge, because she's got vast knowledge as a player, has got real good in terms of credentials as a coach, and I believe she'll go on and really do well in a career. I think she'll be one of the top coaches in women's football, 100%, with the quality she's got. So it's been good to be around both of them environments and see what it takes for an under 21s player to go into a first team environment, and what kind of levels they need to hit and benchmarks they need to hit. So that's been really my role, kind of trying to get as many under 21s players as we can training, which is an objective set training, and being around the first team environment. But then being able to be around that in terms of support Casey with the first team players, and obviously support them staff as well.
It was a bit of an exciting times at the club. And I just want to go back into, obviously, your pathway as a coach. What age did you first get into coaching?
So I was playing for a little bit, and then I got into coaching. I think my first session, if I'm right, Mark, was when I was 16, and it come from within family. So one of my family members, which was my auntie, had a neighbour who was coaching a young boys grassroots team in Liverpool, and I was just getting into obviously my coaching then and starting my badges. And when I got into it, it was through that connection of being there, and my auntie obviously knowing that I was starting my badges and I then done a couple of sessions with the local grassroots team on an indoor. It was an indoor like leisure centre, which was obviously like a small 5-a-side pitch indoor, which was really good because you go into coaching and it's kind of like, because you've played a little bit and you think you've done okay playing, and you think, I'm going to go into coaching, I'll be fine. Yeah. But you don't realise until you go into that environment that it's hard to always transfer what you know as a coach. And if you've done it as a player, trying to get that over then as a coach to players is quite difficult at times. And that's why I wanted to go in really early, to make sure that I give myself the best opportunity. And yeah, at 16 was the first session I'd done. And was it nervy when I'd done it? Yeah, of course it was, because I thought that I knew what I was going to do. But when you go in there and you have all these different moments and actions happening and you don't really know what's going on, it's like a big whirlwind. But it was an opportunity for me to be able to go and get some experience and gain some experience and be around the coach at grassroots, who was able to try and support me and give me opportunity. And give me the opportunity to work with his grassroots team was brilliant, because it gave me it started to build that hunger up inside me that I knew that's where I wanted to go.
So early age, when you started 16, you say there you started your badges. You've also got a BA in sports development and physical education. How did you find university, and was there any coaching roles that sort of complemented the work you were doing at uni?
Yeah, so uni was good. That taught me, because when I was doing my badges, I wanted to obviously go to university when I finished college, and my aim goal was to be a PE teacher, and I went on and done obviously the sport development and physical education program at university, which was very important to me and it linked quite well in terms of the sport development side, especially in terms of me being able to still coach and deliver and still obviously be hands-on, whether that was in a different kind of sporting context and not just football. I was able to still gain vast coaching experience within university, and working from some of the top lecturers in the university at John Moores University, learning and working with the other coaches and the other students who were part of the course I was on. And there were some real good ones who were more qualified than I was when I was at university, which was good because I was able to tap into them for information and while I was looking to do my B license. And that was probably a key part for me. And the coaching roles that potentially come within that, I was doing a little bit of work while I was there for Liverpool, which was just more kind of foundation based, and it was kind of just first steps into coaching, I'd probably say, in a professional environment. And that was important for me to be in an opportunity where I could go and observe and learn, and be in a kind of a risk-free environment where I could go and express what I could do. So that was probably one of the main coaching roles I really come into, as well as still working with that grassroots team that I'd worked with then from 16. I was still able to be around that age group and see them develop as players, and that gave me an opportunity to really get hands-on experience, which is key, but able to kind of develop my own coaching style and my own way of working, but within an environment and a structure that obviously that grassroots team wanted, but obviously the football club wanted when I was doing some voluntary work at Liverpool.
You mentioned there, obviously, you were still playing a little while as well. Something that I like to ask the coaches, when you were doing your badges and you were going through your pathway, did it influence how you played, or did playing influence the way you coached?
I think when you coach, the way I try to think of it is when I started coaching and I was still playing football, I kind of think I've seen the game slightly different. You start to see the game with probably a bigger lens and a different perspective compared to when you're a player. Everything's kind of, you're very zoned into a certain moment or a certain action and a certain situation. When I went into coaching at 16 and was still playing, I then kind of I saw the game slightly different, and I wish I'd probably have seen it that way earlier on in my career, right, in terms of playing, more because I would have probably had a better understanding of the game, which is important. I think I would have been able to see the pictures a lot clearer of what I was seeing when I was getting a bit older. And did it influence me? Yeah, it did at times in terms of my decisions. Maybe I was a little bit more wiser, as you probably put it. I was a little bit more streetwise on the pitch compared to when I was younger. It was more whatever I seen or what the coach has seen, we kind of went with, and you played the actions that happened in that moment. But I think as I got on and I started to do my coaching alongside my playing, that was the important part to kind of me realising that there's a bigger picture to this football, and you've really got to look a little bit deeper in terms of and develop that side of the game, which I think is underestimated in terms of your understanding. And you can look at the picture with a bigger lens, which I started to. I was able to look at things probably in my game and try to tweak them slightly to try and get my 1%ers over other players. And I wish, as I said, I wish I would have done that a little bit earlier in my career.
So then you had a few roles here and there, but the first major role as a coach was working with Liverpool County FA under 18s. How did that come about, and what did it entail as your role?
Yeah, so I had that role come up when I'd finished university, and I was obviously working as a teacher at that time, and that role come up with someone who was kind of managing me within the role I was in as a lecturer teacher. Ronnie Reason, who's obviously works with the County FA, and someone who've got utmost respect for, and I'm probably indebted to for probably the rest of my life in terms of what he'd done for me. He gave me opportunity, and he was the one who brought me into work with the under 17s and 18s at the County FA, and that was a representative side for the County FA to play in obviously the Youth Cup and the County Youth Cup and things like that, which was really good because you were working with players, Mark, who were maybe not good enough to be in an academy at that point, but were just on the brink of it, or they just fell out of academy football, maybe of being released. And that was a good opportunity to work with top players, work with someone who's a top coach in Ronnie, and another one in terms of Kenny Greenhuff, who's a lecturer at Edgehill University, those two mentored me for a long time while I was there, and still speak obviously to them regularly now. And they were two key people for me in terms of my start of my career of coaching, I believe. And when I hit that County FA under 18s, that's when I really believed that I wanted to coach, and I wanted to go and really kick on and have a career in coaching. And I think they kind of give me the tools and the foundations to build from. They taught me what was right as a coach and what was wrong, and they give me feedback, and they mentored me, and they were there when I needed an arm, obviously a shoulder to put my head on, and they were there when I needed an arm around my shoulder at the same time. And they give me so much in terms of the right qualities I needed as a coach, and not just qualities as a coach, but qualities as a person. And the qualities I have as a person now, I hope, in terms of the way I am, is down to those two in terms of the way they've given me it. And that role was brilliant because we trained twice a week. We played top players. We had some real good successes with some of the squads we had, and there's some real good young players that we work with there now that are playing either semi-professional and playing at a decent level. Other players, so one of them broke in last season. Well, the start of, I think must have been just after Christmas potentially. Ben Garrity, who's gone to Blackpool.
Oh yeah.
He signed from Blackpool from Warrington, and Ben I coached there. Ben's probably one of the best players I've coached at that level. He was incredible, and give him his due. That was probably late for him. He was not a lot of people that knew about him, but he made his name at obviously Warrington then, and he's went obviously leaps and bounds at Blackpool now as a pro, and being able to work with them type of players makes you a better coach, I think. But yeah, it was more around the role in there was to support and assist Kenny and Ronnie with the 17s and 18s, but they give me so much opportunity to lead and deliver and gain that experience and that valuable opportunity that you need as a coach. Rather than you can take a lot of information in Mark, but they give me opportunity to lead sessions, and if it didn't go wrong, they weren't the first to jump on my back and give me a big talking down. They'd kind of support me and say, what did you do wrong? How did you go when you need to change things? What were you going to do? And they give me a little bit of guidance, and I think that's what you need as a young coach. Someone who's going to be there to support you and guide you, rather than kind of be on your back and when you're not getting things right. And those two I owe a lot to.
Something that I've picked up on there. You mentioned obviously working at that 17s and 18s group. There was players who were on the cusp of joining the academy. And some that had fallen out of that game.
Yeah.
How did you find that, and managing those different types of players in terms of their psychological side as a young coach yourself?
That was, do you know what? I think you've got to, when you're working with those players. I was a young coach, as you're saying, and I was just learning my trade. And those players had potentially, some had fallen out of academy football and had real high level coaching, and some of them are maybe playing semi-professional and were at a good level. And I think for psychologically for me, I think it was it daunting at times? Yeah, I think it was, because you were scared to kind of, you'd seen obviously your peers in terms of Ronnie, and I'd seen Kenny deliver, and their level and detail was really, really high. And you're worried that when you deliver with those group of players that you're not going to hit them levels. But I think the environment that was created and the way I was made to feel by the players and the staff was, you can make mistakes in this environment and you can take risks in this environment, and if it doesn't go wrong, that everyone's got your back. And I think you've got to earn the respect, and I think it did by, as I'm going back to from what we said a couple of minutes ago, was around the people values and the people skills, and how you kind of come across to those players. Are we approachable, and do I have the right mindset? Are my kind of my timekeeping, my accountability good? Do I interact well with the players, and you kind of show your personality? And I've done that quite well, I think, with those players. And as soon as you do that, I think you gain that trust. And when you gain that trust from players, I believe that by doing that, they're gonna come on side. But then it's how you think you maintain that trust and sustain it. And I was able to do that through the relationship I have, in terms of knowing when I had to be a coach, and knowing when I could take my foot off and have a little bit of a laugh and a joke with the lads at that age. And I think when you do that and you gain their respect and their trust, I think that goes a long way in terms of settling down your psychological worries. But it probably breaks a barrier for them at times, because they probably don't know what to expect. If a coach is quite quiet and not really saying much, they probably don't know if you are quiet and shy because you're young, or you're just kind of stepping back and seeing what's going on. You're a little bit more hands off, and I wasn't. I was just more trying to get used to an environment. And as soon as the players got my respect and my trust, they were brilliant.
Yeah. No, a successful period there with the representative side, and then a stint in America. How did that come about, and what interested you in coaching over in America?
So that was more, there was obviously a lot of, in terms of going over there, that was still young. I was still very young going over there. Going out of my back, obviously going into a completely different country, coming away from family and friends. And that come about because of the likes of the teaching and lecturing role I was in at that moment in time. The kind of the community, the connections they had and the relationships they had with companies abroad and businesses abroad enabled me to go out there and coach. And I went out there and done some work, and I really enjoyed it. It was more working with your kind of recreational and grassroots, as we call it here. Working with them sort of players over in America was good, because I was over there for, I think it was 4 months or 5 months, and that was when I was, as I said, 18, 19. I was really young still, and enjoyed that fully. That was brilliant, going over there and working with them sorts of players in terms of seeing what their environments and their cultures are like, seeing what the differences is between us, obviously us over here in England, and compared to obviously them over there in the US. And that was a massive thing for me. And more, the interest of me going over was more because of, I wanted to experience a different environment and a different culture. I wanted to see what it was like to be over in the US and be out of my comfort zone. But more because of the opportunity when it comes, and you kind of, when you think of the US, you think of all the big cities, and you think, if I got a chance to go over there, I'd love to do it. And when it come up, I went over, and I was lucky enough to work with a club called FC Bolts, and they were brilliant. And the owners and the CEO over there were brilliant, and they're like, we probably say it's a grassroots over here. They take it a little bit more extreme over there. It's still, I think, roughly the same level as we play over here, grassroots, but they obviously, the professionalism that they put into that sort of structure over there is incredible. And I worked with them for quite a bit, and they were brilliant in terms of the quality of the players they had. The structure and the infrastructure that they had was brilliant. And the opportunity they gave me to work with their under 12 boys, under 13 boys, as well as girls at the same time, slightly, was brilliant, because I got opened my eyes to a totally different ball game over there. Because of the quality you see over here with our players, as you know, in terms of England, where it's just a hotbed for real good technical players, and we have they possess so much skill and obviously ability. But going over there was more, the players could handle the ball, but they were physically more robust and more durable, compared to obviously over in England. And that was something I learned very quickly, that you had to really drill down on the technical side of the game and give them real bases and foundations to work from, and try and really get the understanding of why do you need to be able to handle the ball, and how they're going to be able to handle it more than they know they could outrun and out push and out shove everyone. But then could you deal with the ball as well as a player could in England? And how was I going to get that across? And I was given so much opportunity there to work with them players. And that was a brilliant experience of me kind of realising that every country's not going to be the same, and every player you work with is not going to be the same. There's going to be some players who can deal with the ball and some who can't. And it's my job as a coach to make sure that I could do that. And that experience going to the USA was important in me realising that everyone's developments and everyone's stages and people come from different backgrounds and areas will dictate the upbringing they've had in terms of with football. And that was important.
Again, a great experience at a young age as well. And then upon your return, you got roles with Mersey Girls as head coach and then Merseyside County Schools, which ultimately saw you step into the female game. Was that something that was planned, or was it just an opportunity that came up?
No, wasn't something that was planned. That again comes through at that moment in time. I was working with, I'd just come back from obviously the US, and I was working a little bit over here, and I was doing work for Everton with the, like, what do you call it, like a development group, kind of development centres. So when I come back, I was working with the development centres when I come back, 2 or 3, I think it was 2 or 3 times a week. And that's when one of the scouts there obviously put me in contact and said, obviously there was a role going with an under 14, under 16s girls team, and obviously to represent Merseyside. And that come about, and I think that was an opportunity for me to apply for the role and send my CV off and gain experience of interviewing, gain experience of being put in a situation where there's numerous people applying for a role, and I've got to make sure I understand that candidate. And so they weren't really expected roles. It come up, and one of the scouts at Everton gave me a nudge about it. So while it was good because I was working with the boys' development centres, so the players who had just come in on trials or they were just waiting to break into one of the main groups, and then that role come up with the county girls, and that was key for me because it gave me opportunity to lead the programme, it gave me opportunity to put my own philosophy and my own model on under 14, under 16s age group, and being able to select players from, obviously bringing them in from a trial and being able to select them to represent Merseyside was important. And luckily I had kind of a good understanding of still a little bit of the women's game in that area around, because I'd made sure that I wasn't just focusing just on boys football, I was focusing on girls and women's at the same time to give myself the best opportunities that obviously come my way. And yeah, that was a real important part, and that was my first step into the women's game, as you're saying, and the female game. And that was important for me because that kind of made me realise that it doesn't make any difference to me what your gender is, if you're male or female. As a coach, you'll work with anyone, and I've got most respect for some of these female players that I work with now, because some of these are top athletes and top professionals, and some of these will go on to have real successful careers that I've worked with. And there's some in that now that I look back at, Mark, at under 14, under 16 that I work with there, and then I end up working with again further down the line that we'll probably come on to. I end up working with some of them further down the line again when they were 4 or 5 years older, which was good. And it's been good to see them obviously develop as players and people, being able to play a small part in their journey, and while they were playing for, obviously representing their county. But yeah, that wasn't planned. That opportunity come up when I interviewed. I was given the opportunity by a guy called Ken, who was the secretary there. And we sat down, we talked about how they wanted to play as a county and how we wanted to play, how I thought the game should be played, and what would it look like. And it was on a voluntary basis, and I was happy with that because I want to just be given an opportunity where I can put my foot in something and really have a go. And you know what, it was perfect, yeah.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Your success there then led to a role with Everton, where you had a number of roles during 4 years at the club. Talk to us a bit about your time and the different roles that you undertook at Everton.
Yeah, so at Everton, as I said, I was working in development centres with the boys 2 or 3 times a week, and I really enjoyed that because I was working off, as you'll know from working in boys' academies, where you're working off a curriculum and a technical programme, which challenged me as a coach to make sure that I knew what the topic was or the theme was and the objectives I had to achieve. You didn't know if you were going to get every single one of those players in, so that was a challenge of itself. So you could be prepping for 10 players and you might only get 6, or you might get 5. And how am I going to adapt my session to make sure that happens? That was good. I enjoyed doing that. And then that obviously materialised them from then getting opportunities to go and be around some of the pre-academy groups, the 6s and 7s, the younger age groups. And then I was able to then be around from there, working with some of the top coaches there in terms of Paul Bennett, who was he's probably the best pre-academy coach I've ever worked with. And then Lee, another one. Lee was incredible in terms of him and Benno, the way they work with those young players and the amount of players they produced. I learned so much as a person, but so much as a coach in terms of don't complicate the game and keep it as simple as you can for these young players and develop the key attributes of their game and make sure, most importantly, is you're playing to their players' strengths and you let them thrive on those strengths and obviously watch them develop. And that was a good opportunity to work with them age groups. And then obviously working then a little bit higher than working with them was a good opportunity at times throughout the time I was there, when I was predominantly with those pre-academy groups, 6, 7 and 8. I got opportunities to go and work with some of the older age groups, which was brilliant because that was a different experience for me in terms of I was working with under 14, under 16 girls at the time. And then you're going into working with under 12s and 13s boys, and their levels are probably where the under 14 and 16 girls were, or probably slightly more advanced as the boys would be at those age groups. And yeah, being an opportunity to work around that sort of the foundation phase, youth development phase was key. And then I've been then materialising from that, come with an opportunity to work with the women's first team. And that was as it was at that time, was obviously the Super League, and it was they were in the they were in the second division, WSL2, and they were trying to get promoted back up. And I enjoyed my first season. It was part-time. It was a paid role. There was an opportunity that come up that I thought I needed at that moment in time. I thought I needed to have a different challenge and have an opportunity to work with senior players, working 3 days a week with top international players in terms of I was working with some real senior international players, and that was key for me to my development. And it kind of took me a little bit starstruck at one point because you're working with these players who are playing at the top level, and you have to earn their respect again, and you've got to gain that trust from them. And that was an important role for me, going part-time with them. And it then moved into a role with the women's team. It come to a point where it was part-time with the boys' academy, with the pre-academy, and with the women's first team. And then an opportunity to come away from Merseyside in the end to then work with the girls' academy. So I was working with the girls' academy under 15s and under 16s. And that was good because it was all at one club, and I was able to obviously work with the academy and then come in the evening and work with the women. And it was a really good opportunity for me to see the next crop of players coming through, and that was a real enjoyable role. The players are brilliant. I've seen so many players through the years at Everton develop and kick on and move forward their careers, and seeing some of them gone from 15s all the way through to first team, which has been really nice to see. That kind of transition and pathway into a first team as a coach, because you know that if you're seeing these players moving from a youth age group into a professional environment, you know that the pathway's been smooth, and throughout that journey you might have played a slight part in getting them to where they are. And that was important for me. And then what come off the back of that, Mark, was more we won the WSL2 spring series in 2017, which was a brilliant achievement by the players and the staff who were there. And we had a real good season, and it was an opportunity then to go into the Women's Super League 1, which was, and obviously they were a full-time program. There was an opportunity for me to go into full-time football and be around kind of top kind of players, top coaches, and kind of challenge myself. And I was, at that moment in time, I was on the back end of completing my A license. And what was important for me was it enabled me to kind of challenge myself as a coach, and my qualification and my knowledge and understanding that I kind of built up. And when that opportunity come about to work with the women's first team full time, that was important for me because I felt like I'd gained that the last 2 seasons of playing WSL2 football with them part time. I'd built that understanding of it, and I thought that it was a good step for me to go into it full time. And when we did, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot in terms of I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about how to manage and deal with players. There was lots of ups and downs within it. I haven't made so many mistakes within it, but I've learned from them. which was important because I was still young. And yeah, that was an important time for me. And I enjoyed 2 seasons there, with obviously 2 in the bottom league and then 1.5 in the top one. And I think it got to the point where then I needed to refresh, re-challenge, and move on slightly, and give myself the best opportunity to kind of get that fire back in my stomach. And that was probably more down to me as a young coach, probably getting a little bit complacent, because when you've been in an environment for so long and you've been in a club environment for so long, it kind of it wore in a little bit, that you don't get. I wouldn't get too complacent because that's not me, but I kind of thought I needed that another challenge to really get me going again. But my time at Everton was unbelievable. I met so many nice people, and probably the biggest opportunity for me was to be around, go and shadow and work and watch Dave Unsworth with his 23s, being around him and his coaches there, John Ebble, Franny Jeffers, Alan Kelly. Some of those coaches have been able to stand back and watch, or just go and observe and be around. And I could go and touch on Dave's office and have a conversation with him. He was someone who mentored me and gave me so much support and advice on what to do. And so did John and Franny. They gave me so much support, and they were always there if I needed anything. And that was important for me when I was there, that I had a good support mechanism around me. I had such good people in terms of the staffing group. We had the MDT, but I also had such good players around that wanted to be challenged and wanted to learn, but will give you absolutely everything. And that was probably the biggest opportunity that come up for me, in terms of, was to work with them full time was important, because I believe that's given me the opportunity now to really propel my career and move on. And as I said, I moved on from Everton while I was there. But the opportunities I got there while I was there was incredible. They gave me opportunity after opportunity. And when they seen you doing well, which was important for me, Mark, they moved you on and give you the next step.
Yeah.
And then you were always you doing well, you were always recommended. And that was probably the biggest opportunity for me. But the people I had the chance to work with was key.
Enjoyable 4 years then at Everton, as we mentioned, and some might say a brave move to go to local rivals Liverpool, under 21's head coach and technical director. Again, just talk us. You mentioned you wanted a different challenge. How did that come about, and what did your role as technical director involve?
Yeah, so that role come about. I finished at Everton in June, in the summer, and I'd seen an opportunity to work with under 21s, which was then going into a kind of an academy. They were trying to transition into an academy full-time program as an under 21, so it was more like another professional phase. And when that come up, I'd applied for the role and spoke to the general manager and head coach at the time, and they were happy in terms of when we'd spoken, sat down and discussed what the role would look like and what they wanted as a club and the direction they wanted it to go, which was important for myself, because you want to be especially in under 21s who are basically reserved to your first team. You want to be able to develop players, and you want a manager that wants to take young players and give them opportunity when the moments and times are right. And it was brilliant, because Neil Redfern at the time was willing to use those players, and he wanted young players coming through the system, because I think he had the background of 100%. He did when he was at Leeds United, of developing some of the top talent now that's in England. And that was a good opportunity that come up, and I really enjoyed it. I was given an opportunity to lead a top group of players with some big personalities and characters, in terms of some of them had been training with the first team and being around it. They'd been at the club for years. They were respected at international level, of representing their age groups for years. And it was just a good opportunity to be around top players with top staff at top club, and just being able to really put my own stamp on it and really kind of kick on and see if we get some of these players into the first team. And if we couldn't get them into the first team at Liverpool, that we try and find them opportunities and exit routes to get them into other clubs, and whether that was a top league or the WSL2 at the time. And then at the back end of that season with the under 21s, which was successful for them, they won the double that season. It was really good for them to do that. And the back end of that season was another positive from it, come from the technical director's role come up. And it was an opportunity when it was presented to me that was I interested in taking. Yeah, I was 100%. It was something that I'd done a little bit of when I was at Everton, looking over the girls' academy from under 10s all the way up to under 16s. So I was able to see, with doing the under 21s head coach's role and that technical director's role, you were able to see the youth set up from 21s down, which was important because I was able to kind of then put building blocks and pillars in place that would enable us to get to this player we wanted at first team. And that was brilliant. I was able to put a technical program in place that enabled them to play the style and philosophy and have the values and beliefs that the club wanted, but enabled to put a spin on it that was unique to the women's game and was unique to the club as a women's team, and making sure that we were developing players at the right rate. We were giving them the right support and giving them the right resources they needed. That I had the right staff who were developing these players and make sure that they understand player development. And when working with some of those young players and some of those coaches who work with them, I've got nothing but good words to say about them. Some of the coaches I work with at those age groups, the younger ones, were outstanding. A couple of them in terms of just the way they are with young players, and they know how young players tick. But some working with the top age groups in terms of 16s and 14s, those coaches who were so experienced at working with them age groups and knew what it took then to get them players and where they needed to be on that pathway to get to be that next 21 player or next senior player. It was just more, you'd more facilitate and manage staff and manage the technical program. But you were then you had a lot of wraparound stuff to do in terms of off the pitch, was making sure that everything was done within a time scale. So if we had reviews, they had to be planned in. If we had to do staff reviews, we had to look at the games on the weekend, how that all looked. Did we challenge players sometimes, Martin, play them up from 14 at 16 if they were capable of doing it? And that was within the rules, and making sure that on the weekend we had enough players for each team if they had injuries. And there was lots to do off the pitch wraparound, but it was brilliant because it's something I'm really passionate about in terms of youth development. And it's something I'll always be passionate about, is developing young players to make them be obviously successful senior players in the future. And that role was intense, but it was so beneficial, and you're seeing such good reward from it when you see so many young players going and representing the country or being selected for the first time, and you're seeing young players go from under 10 to under 12 to under 14 and work through the age group. And we then enabled us to put, at the moment in time I was there, we put in an under 9s and under 11s, 2 extra age groups, just to more kind of give the players an extra year at their age group, at their actual age group, because in the women's academies, as some people might not know, it goes in a 2-year age band. So you go under 10, under 12, under 14, under 16, and then there's a big jump from 16 to 21s. So I decided at the point that I think it would have been beneficial to have a small development group of under 9s who we work with and we develop ready for under 10s. And then when they come out of under 10s, they're going from 7v7 to 9v9, which, as you know, you're virtually playing from half of the pitch to virtually the full size and width of a pitch in terms of 11v11 size, half of it. So when they went for that, I found that some players found it real difficult physically. And I felt like technically they weren't always, they didn't sometimes have the right capabilities at that moment in time, because that's where they were at developments to deal with the demands of it. And I thought that when I'd look back over some of the models that were in place within the Northwest as a technical director, I seen that some clubs were having the under 9s, under 11s in, and just being able to speak to them staff, even though they're local rivals, and giving you a bit of information and giving you a reason of why they do that was important to me, because it enabled me to kind of gain an understanding of the value of actually having those 2 age groups in. And what it does, it gives the players an opportunity to play at their own age group, as I said, for a little bit longer, which then they're competing against that age group, which is brilliant, because I'm actually seeing where they're actually at in terms of their development, not where we want them to be, but they're not because of the year out of it. So that enabled us to do that a little bit better. And when we added them in, obviously then they're all become a lot more intense, because you're now managing 6 teams instead of 4, and I'm managing the one on top of it, which becomes 7 in terms of under 21s, and your times and your days become a lot busier. You're working right through from when I was working with the 21s, you're working right through the evening, you're working right through then with my second year as technical director and under 21s head coach. I was working from the afternoon with the under 21s going full time. I was working from 3 o'clock till 6 with the age groups in terms of the 21s, and then I was going working with the age groups through the evening until 9:30. And your days become long, but it's so rewarding when you see the pathway and the program really run smoothly. And it was a brilliant opportunity to be a part of. And obviously the club's brilliant. The club was supporting me a lot in terms of the wraparound that I got, and it was then an opportunity of me making a decision then of in terms of when it was the role I was in, did I want to stay in that? And you know what, it didn't work out at the time I was there in terms of staying there, but I think this has set me up now to where I am today, which is very important for me, that everything happens, I believe, for a reason, and it's happened for the right reason, because I believe I'm in such a better place now mentally. I believe I'm in such a good place in terms of technically being on the pitch and delivering and being in the right environment for me. But I had some really good times at Liverpool and working with those types of players, and that I work with, and some of the staff I work with in the girls' academy and stuff was outstanding.
Just before we touch on your current role, then one thing I wanted to point out, a lot of work with the technical director role. However, as the coach for the 21s, you won the league in your first season with 3 games to spare. That must have been a really proud moment.
Oh yeah, no, it was brilliant. That was probably, that season was a whirlwind, to be fair, Mark, because it felt like it come and went really, really quick, and the expectation on those players. I know a lot of those players had big aspirations and big expectations on themselves to deliver, and I know that we had some talented players in that group, and it was difficult when I come in because I didn't enter the role till September. So I think it was the last week in August, and I got my first chance to work with the players the first week in September, and I think I had 2 sessions with them before we played the first game, and they hadn't had a pre-season. So it was difficult because I was coming into a team that hadn't had a pre-season. I'd been training the week before I come in, they started training. So they'd had probably 2 sessions, then another 2 with me, and we were playing a game. So then trying to get in the philosophy and the ways of working and the way we were going to play, and which was all based and run through the club, how they wanted to play as a club. But it was kind of trying to put your own spin on certain aspects to suit the individual players within the team, so you get the best out of them. And yet that was unbelievable. There was a whirlwind. So we had no pre-season. So the first probably 2 months, and probably the first 7 to 8 weeks were a pre-season for us, obviously, but we were playing games, and we kind of just set out that as much as we want to, we just want to be better every game. Can we be better individuals every game? We can be a better team every game. But then at each week in training, can we get our levels higher? And can we increase the intensity of training? And can we get to where we want to be by, when I set it out, was can we get to be where we want to be probably the start of October? We were looking at start to end of October. Can we get halfway where we want to be? And then when it comes to November, I thought we were in full throttle then, and we looked good and we felt good, and we had a rocky start. I think we drew one. We won a couple, I think, and then we drew one, and then we got beat by obviously rivals Everton, where I'd come from, and I didn't know what to expect then, because we were still in that phase of developing the robustness in them, because they had another pre-season, and but the players had set out themselves that they wanted to win the league and they wanted to win one of the cups, and I'd obviously go with that. But my ambition was to get these players in the first team and try and get them professional contracts if we could. But I obviously wanted to win, of course I did, because I think it's not just about the winning and the results. For me, it was more, I was telling the players that you've got to want to win inside. It doesn't have to be the result. Can you want to win inside more than think about just the results? And yeah, what an incredible achievement by them players. They were some of the best I've worked with. But that didn't happen. I give the credit to the players and the staff, because the staff I had were brilliant. The players I worked with were incredible. There wasn't probably, we suffered a lot throughout the season, and it was more back end of the season when we won that. When we won it with the 3 games to spare. We were on our last legs. We played 7 games in 21 days, and we're playing a game every 3 days, and it was a killer because we were playing Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday, Wednesday for the whole of April, and that become really heavy on the players, and we started to see that knock-on effect, because you were starting to see injuries, and it got towards the end of the season where we were only be able to just get a bare 11 out, and I was having to play some under 16s up, and it was good because we were able to keep the core part of the group, and we had a lot of players that went and trained and played with the first team of a weekend, so we didn't have them, and we had a consistency of probably 5 or 6 players, and then other players would drift in and out, and it was important for me to make sure that when we got to a point where the players were starting to really believe that they could win it after a rocky start, and when it got to those, I think it was the last 6 games, we had 6 games to go, and they knew what they needed to win, and I knew, but it all was all result dependent on other teams, but we always had the thought in our head, and we always had a mindset of, can we focus on us, and can we focus on how we want to play and the way we want to do things, and if we look after ourselves, the the rest of the table will look after itself. And as long as the players were developing, that was the most important part for me. And yeah, they won it with 3 games to spare, which was very pleasing for the players because it was made up for them. And then, if I'm right in saying, I think it was 2 weeks later they went and won the Academy Plate, which was brilliant. They went and done the double, and what an achievement for those players in terms of some top pros in there now who are playing now. And that's what's pleasing for me to see. The success we looked at it was a treble-winning season. It was quite funny because we looked at it where they'd won the plate and then they won the league. But then the third trophy for us was that we had, I think if I'm right, it was 9 out of that group of 18. 9 out of that group of 18 went and played either Women's National League Tier 3 or 4, or they played WSL 2, or they got offered a professional contract with the first team. And some of them, I think 7 of them still there now playing. And so the group of players we had at that time, it was really good for me because it enabled me to look at that and think we've actually done a good job with these players we had in a space where it was a whirlwind at the start. But what they went on to achieve and develop as players was key. And that's why we kind of classed as a treble-winning season, because all the players succeeded and progressed in some sort of way, whether they were retained at the club or they moved on to pastures new. And you're kind of looking at it in a way of, we've done really well with these. And but that comes down to the players more than anything. They get all the plaudits, and so do the staff that I was working with, because they work tirelessly every day.
It brings us on nicely to your current role, and as we mentioned earlier in the conversation at Manchester United. How are you finding it there with the club being relatively new to the women's game at that level?
Good. You know what? I can't thank the club enough for the way I was welcomed. I'd spoke with Charlotte and she contacted me and we discussed the role that I was in then as a under-21 head coach, and what a role to be in terms of working with someone who I've known for years, Charlotte. I've got utmost respect for. We're good friends, and someone who we'd said earlier on in years before that we'd like to work together somewhere, and it was mad that it obviously come about because he was looking for an assistant to work with her. And what a brilliant club to be at. I've been welcomed with open arms. You get the utmost support. The staff are absolutely brilliant. The wraparound supporter gets absolutely top quality. And working with a team, as you said, they're a new team, but they don't feel like they're a new team because they have the infrastructure and resource, and they have the staffing group that they feel like they've been together for years. But it just runs so professionally, and I can't speak highly enough of the club. I really can't, in terms of what they do for staff and players is incredible. And you know what, it's been an absolute blessing for me to be there. I'm privileged to be there, and I'm honoured to be at that club because they're giving me so much as a coach to develop and as a person, and hopefully I can repay them for as long as I'm there.
Something that I did want to discuss with you today was something that we spoke about when we were on the Youth Award. And am I right in saying it was a family member who was scouted by an academy side? And, there was advice, suggestions from yourself that it's probably not best to sign at such a young age. Can you just, obviously, for those that weren't privy to that conversation, just divulge in your thoughts around that, of the advice of not signing so young?
Yeah, that was a young family member who, obviously I won't mention their name, but they were still a real young child. And my experiences of, I'm saying that, this is just my opinion. I'm not saying that young players shouldn't go on and play academy football if they're offered a place there. My opinion was that the experience I'd have as a player, and what I was trying to get across was, I didn't want someone to be really pigeonholed and be locked down to one sporting career at such a young age that they were at. Why couldn't you go and experience that sport, but go and experience other sports? Because you might fall in love with another sport that you've never played. You might find a different skill set that's locked inside you, but you've never been able to kind of bring out. And that was important for me to make sure that I just give my opinion. I give my opinion and my advice of, I believe you should be opportunity. You shouldn't really be put into a situation where you feel like you've got to sign for someone at a young age. I think you should only really you should be made, what you're going to call it, should you be made to select a specific sport at a certain age. I believe get them to 14 and then let them make a decision then, as long as they're playing that sport regularly and they're getting that opportunity. So if they're in a boys' academy, for example, or a girls' academy, and they're getting the opportunity to go and train twice a week with a boys' academy at a decent level, and then they're going to do, for example, a tennis, a badminton, a rugby, or you're going to learn so much in terms of fundamentally and skills that are transferable. And would you rather pigeonhole someone into one sport at such a young age, or give them vast experience that they might get to that age and then decide to choose that route of football, but they might have picked up those valuable transferable skills and the experience that they've gained that can transfer to that football down the line. And I wanted that family member to experience so much more than just football and not kind of just pigeonhole themselves straight away. That was their decision. I just give them advice on what I thought, but I think you shouldn't have to specialise them, and being honest. My opinion would be let young players experience different sports and different environments, and don't kind of specialise them until they get to around the 13, 14 age mark, just to give them the best opportunity to experience something else in sport. If players want to go and specialise earlier, that's fine. I've got no issue. That's just my opinion in trying to bring out different characteristics and skills in players. Because you don't know what hidden talents players have got. They're hiding certain talents that they've got that they only use their feet when they're playing. Well, why can't they use something with hands if they're doing a basketball, a tennis or something? We don't know what they've got, and that could be a real serious talent inside someone. And if you can go and get them to experience something different, brilliant. But it was just more of a bit of advice, and that's what I thought, that I didn't think it was right for them to specialise at such a young age, which is 7. I didn't think it was right for someone to go and specialise at that age and train 3-4 days a week and not really have a social life to go and experience other sports with his friends or in the community. And that was just my opinion. I think that he can specialise a lot later.
I mean, we are seeing recruitment for players getting younger and younger in the current climate. And is this potentially detrimental for these children, or can it be turned as a positive?
It's difficult because it depends what you're looking at in football nowadays, doesn't it, Mark? I think football nowadays it's run as a business. As much as we don't want to say it's run as a business, and every club, if you're looking at in different cities, if you're looking in London, if you're looking down in Liverpool and northwest area, you've got down in this northwest area, you've got Liverpool, Manchester City, Manchester United, Everton. You've got clubs, Preston. You've got all these clubs in this area that are trying to get that one player that's going to really be the superstar and is going to make us everything as a club. And are they getting younger recruiting now? Yeah, of course they are, and we're seeing that massively. There's under 5s and 6s, elite teams and everything you're seeing nowadays, and I think it's absolutely obscene. The kids barely know their own name, so we're getting them to try and turn them into this next big player. And is it detrimental to them? Yeah, because I believe they're not living the life that we probably lived when we were younger. That we were given opportunity to go and play street football and go and experience different opportunities with our friends. We were playing different sports. We were going to events with local community centres, and now some of these children literally, they get up, they have their breakfast, they go to school, they come home, they get changed, they go to football, and the routine's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days. And I've come across some players who I've worked with when I was other club, with some of the clubs we've discussed, and you've got some kids who are training with A club on this day, B club on that day, C club on this day, and they're 6 years of age. And you look at it thinking, is that having a positive effect on the players? Probably not, because how much you push that player and drive that player, and you've at that young age, such a young age, might potentially push them out of the game and make them look like fall out of love with it. And what you want to get them to do is not. So I think sometimes I think the child's got to be the driver and kind of go, do you know what, I want to go to train today. They're 6 or 7 years of age. Like, let them make a decision of what they want to do. And if they make a decision that they want to go to football, take them. If they make a decision that they want to go to play football with the mates on the park, let them go and do it. But I think it can have a detrimental effect if it's constant and it's non-stop. Because I think the player's going to get to a point where he's going to think that, why am I doing this? He's going to get tired. They're going to burn out. They're only young children at the same time. And we've got to make sure that I think we find a balance between, is it positive? It can have positive effect, and I can guarantee there probably is players who have went in so young and are at the top level now. I can get that. But I think some players who probably went in at such a young age and have probably just fell out of probably 2 or 3 years later, because the pressure that they felt they'd been put on them at such a young age, they've never experienced it before, and they probably haven't been given the support and guidance they probably needed, and they're going to fall out of love with the game and then try and have to find a new niche that they need in terms of a different sport, a different career. And that's why I believe in terms of we can specialise later and let these children have opportunity to go and experience different things. You never know what these children have got inside, the talented, and some of these young children nowadays are they know more than we do as adults. And I think we've got to kind of use their brains a little bit more in terms of let them make decisions. And that's how I believe psychologically, by let the children make the decisions when they're younger themselves, I think that can slightly enhance the decision making when they get older. Yeah. And that's a big thing in football now, is how can we influence decision making. But if we stem the decision making really early in the careers, how are we expecting them to then make decisions when they get older? Because we've actually told them from a young age, yeah, we're going to football now, or we're going to go here now, and we're going to do this now. The kid's not made a decision. So we can get them to make a decision on their own while they're younger. What do you want to do? Well, I want to go and do this, or I want to go and do that. Okay, we'll go and do it. So when they get older, they'll make a decision themselves naturally to go at 12 or 13. Okay, I want to play this sport, not kind of what you think, rather than them looking up at you and asking you what you think, where that's been driven in so much from a young age that they probably still do it. And that's where I think it can have a negative effect. But I can guarantee there's positives from it, because you see some of the top players in world football now who've probably gone through their academy setups. Looking at someone like Manchester City, Phil Foden, probably done it all the way through. You've got someone like Tom Davies from Everton when I was there, all the way through. Trent Alexander-Arnold, all the way through. So there's probably going to be some there, but I can guarantee you somewhere through their careers, they'd have had an opportunity, or they'd have been doing something different potentially. It might have been just football. And that's where the positive does come, as you said. But I just believe it can be detrimental to real young children with the ages, as you said, they're coming in so young now. They're coming in at 5 and 6.
I think something there to touch on is, I don't know if you heard it recently, Michael Owen was speaking and said that he felt that he peaked at 19. And after that, the game against Argentina and the World Cup in 98, he felt he was on a downward spiral in his career. Would you say that's where early specialisation can be detrimental because of the load that it put on his hamstrings?
100%, Mark. Yeah, I think, and that's obviously from someone of his class when he was younger. He was unbelievable. He was unplayable at times, and I think if you're looking at his story then, and he's saying that as a player that he thought he peaked at 19, did he get to burn out at 19 and kind of fall away from it slightly? And he potentially did, from what he's saying. And it's hard for you to kind of know what's right for a young player and what's not. But I just think if you're pushing them in at such a young age, you drive them so hard at a young age to get them to be as good as they can be. And then they get to a point where they just think, I don't want to do this anymore. Or I know I'm hitting a downward spiral because I've actually done so much at a young age that I physically can't develop much more. I've actually probably peaked as a 19-year-old of someone who's probably a 26, 27, 28-year-old. And then they get to a point now, then we're on a downward spiral that they're realising why they're doing that at such a 19, maybe because, as you said, they specialised a little bit too early and weren't given opportunity to look at anything else, or they just might not have been given the right guidance and support. But you never know. Everyone's career is different, and you will never know the ins and outs of it, and it's all opinion-based, as you know. And I think more it's might be down to early specialisation potentially, and that's my opinion on it. Should be, I believe that if you can give players the opportunity to specialise later on, I think you'll see so much more in terms of, you bring out so much more talent and different traits that will come out of players compared to if we push them and we drive them early doors. They'll never make their own decisions.
I mean, you're quite highly experienced and knowledgeable, Coach Martin, as you know, I'm well aware of. Something that you touched on earlier was about the fundamental movements, and something I just want to ask is, how can we as coaches, and maybe more so at grassroots level where we have the first contact with them, at 6, 7, 8, how can we encourage physical and fundamental movements during those golden years of learning, really?
Yes, I think you've got to, that's another one, Mark, in terms of giving the players experiences at grassroots to, if you different types in terms of practices you put on. Does it always have to be with the ball? Can it be with the ball in hands and you play a game of ball tag and they've got to work on different movements? Is it you're looking at different activities during your warm-ups and your arrival activities that can be slightly different? And can you be creative with it and think outside the box? Is it always with a ball at your feet? Can it be with a ball in your hands? Can it be with no ball? And you've got to do something different with cones and different reaction games. And I think those sort of things to encourage that physical development are key. And I think down at those ages, can we do more? I think we can, at grassroots. But I still believe at the strands above the grassroots, I think they can do more for the grassroots coaches. And I think they can provide more support and more opportunity for them to come and work alongside some of those professionals who are in the academies, who are doing the physical development, so your S&C coaches and your sports scientists, can they come and experience them and tap into their knowledge, which would be important. And I think you can do more as coaches. And how can we do it is, as I said, you can be more creative with your sessions. You can look at different aspects. And what I try to do a lot of when I do it, if it was a warm-up activity or a specific action I'm trying to get out or an outcome, sometimes look at different sports. And I think basketball's a big one for it now. Is if you can look at basketball for like the set plays and stuff, Mark, is brilliant, because they do a lot of obviously locking and blocking, and you can try and change some of that over into your sessions. And I've done lots of work when I was, especially when I learned on my B license, was when I was on my B license, Alex Gibson, who was unbelievable in terms of a coach and someone I've got a lot of respect for and I still speak to now, is he done a lot of that when we were doing a lot of build-up play on the B license. He put us on a small pitch when we were at the venue, we were at the facility on a basketball pitch, and he done build-up play with us on that and said, this is what it can look like. You can do build-up play with your hands here to paint a picture for a young child or a young player where they'll see it because it's going around, then put them on the pitch and show them what it means with the feet. So I believe it with those sorts of, as you said, physical stuff and the movement, I believe you can get them in with different variety of games. And you probably play most of these games at school. You probably do ball tag and just normal tag, stuck in the mud, all these movements where the players have got to get up and down and they've got to change direction. And I believe if you can get some of these games in with them at younger age groups, you'll see such more in terms of the difference in physically. There's no point putting a child through at young age groups all these ridiculous exercises. You just let them learn different games and different activities that give them different stimulants. And by doing them in terms of change of direction and different speeds and moving up and down and jumping, and if you can get them into your warm-ups with different activities, with different type of ball, and you can do stuff with your hands rather than your feet, I believe you're going to get so much more out of the players physically as they get older, because they're learning those key traits and those key physical components early, with their agility, speed and the quickness stuff. And are they learning how to change direction right? Do they get the feet right? How the hips when they're moving? And I think that can link in so much to around your attacking movements. It can link into your defending movements, and you can tweak parts of it to make it suit your football. But I believe, as coaches, we've got to look at activities that aren't always football based, and we've got to look at it slightly different in terms of to get some of those physical, obviously, components out. And if you think outside the box, and you're more than likely, I don't think there's ever a wrong session. I think sometimes it's just the layout and the design of it, and maybe the structures and restraints you have on it. And I think you can get a lot out if you're just creative as a coach.
Something we could probably discuss for another hour or so is, we mentioned specialisation in terms of getting them in a sport. How about playing positions? What would you say the benefits are for coaches enabling players at young ages to vary different positions?
It's difficult because I think it depends what you do, is what you believe in as a coach and what you believe in as a club. I think your training methodology and your playing methodology dictates a lot. I think your philosophy as a club and the way you want to develop players and how quick you want to develop them depends on if you really specialise early playing positions. And I believe when you're playing, if you're looking in boys academy football, I think they don't specialise very early from the experience I've had at Everton personally. But they probably start to specialise when they're going into that 9v9 phase. Into 9v9, I'd probably say more 77 9v9. You start to specialise a little bit more, and they might play within 2 positions or play within 3. And the way I try to look at it with Liverpool, with the women, just to try and think of it, was how could they give them opportunities to play in different positions. And when we were at under 9s and 10s, they were to play every position on the pitch, so you can give them experience of seeing what it's like. It's different, obviously, in the boys' game. I get that, because they probably had under 6, under 7, under 8, under 9s before we get to ours at under 10s. And we obviously get first contact with them at 9s. And I said that under 9s and 10s, they play every position. And then when it got to under 11s and 12s, they were to play within 3 positions within 2 units. So that was key for me, because it was we tried to make sure that we didn't confuse them with the kind of position they are on the pitch. The spaces look the same. You just had you're either higher or you're lower. So we looked at centre backs being able to play as a centre back being able to play as a number 6, and then a number 6 being able to play as a number 8, for example. we'd have a right fullback be able to play as a right midfielder and a right winger. We looked at a right midfielder being able to play as a right winger or a centre forward. We looked at an 8 being able to play as a 10 or a 9. So we looked at kind of specialising in certain positions and how we could do that. And at Liverpool, the thing we come to as a group of staff was, can they play in 3 positions within 2 units? And that was up to under 12s. And then when it got to 14s, we kind of look at it at 14, 16, because you need to start specialising. I think 11v11 to get them to understand that we went, they got to be able to play 2 positions within 2 units. So it was and then we drilled down real finer with it. Was a right fullback to play as a right winger, a central midfielder being able to play, if you're a 6, you'd be able to play as an 8. If you're an 8, can you play as a 10? And we had the number 9 being able to play as a 10. Can a right winger play at right fullback? And we looked at a centre half. Can you play as a centre half and a holding midfielder? And we just looked to kind of do that within 2 units. And it worked really well. At 14, 16s, it worked brilliant because the players were, obviously the pitches look different from a centre back to a centre midfielder, because you've got the 360 as a centre midfielder is totally different. As a centre back, it's all in front of you most of the time, apart from if you turned. But that's what we looked at in terms of specialising. But we didn't really, as I said, we didn't really specialise. We specialised more in terms of the area of the pitch where we thought the player would be more impactful and will benefit and have more longevity. But at the early ages in women's football at Liverpool, we come to an agreement as staff, not just my opinion, was could we specialise in later on, 14, 16, could they have 2 positions over 2 units rather than just letting it be a free-for-all, or just kind of saying that's just your position. So we looked at more to give players more opportunity and better opportunity going forward, that they were more versatile. But yeah, does it have its benefits if you specialise someone early? It could do. You never know, because it's based on opinions, and there'll be some players who've played in that position all their lives and have kicked onto the top level, which is brilliant, and where there'll be some that hasn't. And I think by giving the players opportunity at younger age groups to experience and build an understanding of different positions over those young age groups, I believe that you might see a player do something that you didn't know they could do, because you've built upon that. He's a big, tall centre half, and you look at him and go, big, tall lad, and he looks like a centre half, so we'll play him there. Yeah. Or we'll have a centre forward, we'll have someone who's really, really quick, and we play him as our centre forward then. But he might be really good as a fullback or a right winger. So we're looking at, I don't know, it depends how you see it as a club and as a coach. But I believe at the younger age groups, if you can experience them to different positions and different experiences on the pitch, later on down the line, you might specialise slightly. But I think compared to the way I've done it, we as staff agreed when I was at Liverpool, was we looked at the way we could specialise, but we didn't pigeonhole to straight a position. We specialised within a number of units all the time.
I mean, obviously, before we start to wrap up now, as we've been on quite a while now, what advice would you give to any, I'm not going to say young coaches, but just any coaches looking to get into the game and maybe get that full-time role?
Do you know what, Mark? I think it's obviously the game's grown a lot bigger now, and there's a lot of opportunity. I think if you want opportunity, I believe there is. I think you've got to be, now with the world we're in, you've got to be willing to go and put yourself out there, speak to coaches, learn, which is probably the biggest part. Is you were given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Listen to the advice people give you. Go and listen to people and observe people. But then make sure when you're out there that you ask questions and you want to learn. That's the biggest part. Is don't go and watch someone and not ask a question, or not try and engage with people. And for me, the most important part for me was the voluntary hours. I know you'd have done it yourself. Is you've got to go out and put yourself there, but be willing to sacrifice that evening with your mates or your friends to go and gain that valuable experience that might be that opportunity that just gets you in that door slightly because you didn't expect it. But yeah, it's probably the time and effort's got to be there. You've got to put time and effort in and commitment to your own development. You've got to then put the time and effort in to make sure that you go and get experience through voluntary coaching, if that's what you can get, or if you can get paid coaching for doing that, brilliant. And then making sure that when you're in the environment where you're around good coaches, that you ask questions and you listen and you learn from those people, because they're the ones probably your first steps in your career that will probably give you the ideas and probably start to paint the picture of your own philosophy of how you want to play and the way you want to work. so it's unique to you. But they were the biggest things I learned: the voluntary experience and getting out there and putting myself about. But then making sure when I got there that I was asking the questions and trying to make sure that I wanted to learn and develop, but I listen more than anything to the people around, because they're obviously in a privileged position to be where they are. Whether we agree or not, they're in privileged positions to be as a coach in those environments, and they've probably got so many stories or experiences that they can pass on to you to help you learn. And they're the biggest ones. But I think as you would have done it for years, Martin, and I done it for years, is you have to put the hours in, and the hours are sort of most of the time sometimes unpaid, and you've got to be willing to do it to get to where you want to be, and you will get there. If you really want it, you'll get there, but it might take time.
Fantastic. Just before we go on to the last bit, then, what does the future hold for you, Martin?
Do you know why? I've got ambitions of wanting to manage and work at the top level, whether that's a women's game or that's a men's game, and if that's club or international level. I'd like to manage an international level right down the line, manage at club level at the same time, and see that they're my ambitions to do that. And I'd hope that I get those opportunities, and if they come about, they come about. If I don't get the opportunity, I'm in a kind of a predicament at the moment with myself of, do you want to, because I've enjoyed being an assistant and kind of be able to step back and look at the pitch slightly different and give an opinion on something that might be, when you're in as a coach and a head coach, you're basically tunnel vision, and it's hard sometimes to really see what other people see. And I'm kind of thinking, do I want to be a head coach or an assistant coach, and what one suits me better in terms of my characteristics and my traits and the way I work and the way I am. So I'm going through that at the moment, but I hope that I can work at the top level in senior football, club and international level down the line, and that's what my ambitions are, and I'll work towards them as much as I can to try and get there. I'm privileged to be in the position I am now, working alongside Casey with the women's first team from the new season coming up, and that's going to be, for me now, doesn't seem real still, I'll be honest, but it's going to be a massive opportunity to work at a big club with obviously big expectations and big aspirations to be successful, and that sort of pressure I thrive on. Knowing that I've got to really deliver as a coach, and I've got to make sure that I'm doing what's best for the players in the club, and I've got to make sure that every day I'm going in full of energy, and I'm making sure that I'm giving the best account of myself every day, and hopefully that will put me instead down the line in the future to open up other opportunities and doors for me. But whatever comes away, as you know, within 12 months' time, something different will totally happen, and you don't know. And that's the good thing about football. There's stories and there's different opportunities every 5 minutes. And I think hopefully down the line, I'll be able to have a successful career in the game and be able to still give obviously new coaches an opportunity, because that's what I think. That's what I'm massive about. Anyone I've worked with, and I've tried to, any roles I've had, whether I've led an age group, I've tried to give people opportunity. Whether that's a new coach coming in or that's someone I've worked with previously that hasn't had a break in the game, and I've tried to give them opportunity. And but yeah, hopefully down the line I can work at senior level, hopefully. And if that does come about, brilliant. If it doesn't, then I know I'll give it everything. I know that I'll always give it everything, so I'll have no regrets at the end of the day. But that's my aspiration, is to work at the top level of senior football, and most of all just try and achieve what I've set out to do. And if I do, brilliant. If I don't, I don't. But I know that I won't leave any stone unturned.
I'm pretty positive, Martin, knowing you, that you will have a long and successful career at the top level of the game. I just want to go on to I'm going to call it infamous quick fire question round.
Okay.
Put you on the spot a little bit. Best moment in football to date?
Two of them: winning the double with the under-21s, winning the Super League Spring Series with Everton. Yeah,
not bad.
Probably both of them. Yeah, two of them.
Best friend in football?
Close. Liam Hughes works over in Canada. One of my good friends, really good friends, is a technical director over in Canada. Someone who's really close to me. I get on really well with. I can turn to anytime I need them, and we're really good friends. So Liam Hughes over in Canada.
Fantastic. Toughest opponent as a coach?
Jeez, that's quite a good one. Toughest opponent as a coach who I've played against. That's a challenge one. Nick Cushion, potentially. So working at senior level again, trying to think of those coaches. Nick Cushion was a big one. Someone who's I've played against and have I know as a person, and is a real good person too. He's a top coach, and is now working over in New York with New York City. And yeah, real good coach, detailed, quality, gets his teams. You can see the identity and what he wants from his teams by the way they play. And he's been so successful at Manchester City women when he was there. He's won the title numerous times. Obviously the domestic cups, the Continental Cup, the FA Cup, he's won them. And now he's on to another new opportunity with New York City as one of the assistant coaches, which is I'm made up for him. He deserves it. And yeah, he's probably one of the toughest opponents I played against because it was like a chess game when you played against him.
Yeah, well, big praise there. Player-wise, best trainer?
Best trainer I've worked with over my whole career so far, best trainer. I'm going to go back to one I said earlier, Ben Garrity.
Okay.
He's now at Blackpool. He was phenomenal. His work rate, his work ethic, his commitment to his craft was incredible. And I'm not surprised where he's at now. I'm really not. And he probably deserved the opportunity years ago, but he just didn't get the kind. He probably didn't have his profile out there. And yeah, he's probably the best trainer I've worked with in terms of everything. He was demanding of players, but he was demanding in the right way. But the way he went about his business and training, when he crossed the white line, it was business. And yeah, he's probably the best I've worked with in terms of training.
Biggest role model or influence in football?
Oh, biggest role model. So, biggest role model in football, as probably most people know, when you know me well enough, is probably Pep Guardiola. I'm massive on him. I'm a delusional to trying to do everything he does now because I have my own way of wanting to play. Do I try and look at his game and see how he does certain things? Yeah, but I'll never know the underlying concepts. So I like some of the ideas he has, and you can try and implement some of them. But I'm always very clear and very understanding that it's my way of playing and it's my own philosophy. And I'm not him. I'm myself. And he's probably my biggest role model on influence in football at the moment. But if I'm going to look at influence in terms of away from football, I'm probably look at my family. Just trying to make your family proud, and can you make your parents and your brothers and your sisters proud, and your other family around you, aunties, uncles, so on and so forth. And probably away from football, them a bigger influence because I try and do everything I can in terms of to make them happy and make them proud of me. But biggest role model on the pitch is probably, I'll be honest, it's as a footballer and person, it's Pep Guardiola. Yeah.
So we mentioned the best trainer. Who would you say the best player you've coached is?
Oh, bloody hell. Best player I've coached. That's actually a really good one. There's some top players who I've worked with over probably in the women's and the boys game. I'd probably go in the women's. That's what I've been for probably most of my time. The last good few years, anyway, is I'm probably looking at. Jesus, you've got me here, Matt, with this one. There's some real good players who I've worked with. Best player I've worked with or I've coached. I'm gonna go with a player who I work with at Liverpool, who's now playing at Blackburn's women. There's her and another one. I'll probably go. Millie Robertson was very good. I worked with her for the season I was at Liverpool. The 18 months I was at Liverpool, I worked with her. She was incredible. Very good player, trained very well, consistent in terms of performances in games, outstanding. You knew what you were getting from her. She was a very good centre half, aggressive, quick, very good technically, very gifted player, and I believe she'll have a decent career. I really do. And then the second one will be Annabelle Blanchard. So those two were the two big ones for me. Annabelle Blanchard was at Liverpool when I was there, and was very, very, very impressive. A girl who's now playing at Leicester City women's first team, and will have a career. She plays with England at under 19s. I think she'll have a massive career because she's got everything you need as a centre forward. She's got the finishing qualities, her attitude in terms of on the pitch wanting to win, which is key, is massive. She's got that little bit of football arrogance about herself, which is good, because I think you need that at times, if you want to get that top level. But she's someone who worked extremely hard and was the captain of the team. I managed at that time in the 21s and led that group really, really well. And Annabelle and Millie Robinson are probably the two best I've coached probably over the last few years, definitely.
Describe yourself in 3 words.
Jesus, that could. My opinion in 3 words is going to be different to someone else's, I'll tell you that. I would say very committed. I'd say committed, definitely one. Yeah, committed, hardworking, and demanding, I'd probably say.
Demanding. Okay. Finally, is there anybody you would recommend or like to hear on our podcast?
Oh, someone who I watched yesterday I watched a webinar yesterday, and someone who I've watched it numerous times today again, just to write notes down on it. Who's really good, Dan Machichi, who's one of the England coaches. He's outstanding. I think his practice design and the way he works with players, the way he creates those relationships and understanding of the players, and how he gets them to tick and stuff like that is something else. He's really, really good, and that's really at that sort of level. And I think there's so many good influences. Nick Cushion's another one for me. Nick's way of working, I think, and his understanding of the game and where he's been and where he's come from. I think that's another key one for me. Nick's brilliant and such a role model in terms of these are people I look up to and I've looked at in terms of where they've come from, and I try and take parts from the way they work. Maybe not always be hands-on, but from watching them and speaking to in terms of seeing what they do online, and these are the people I've really took a big kind of I've kind of looked at and kind of took a big kind of I've come to them and kind of looked and thought, yeah, I'd be interested in having a chat with you. I'd be interested in working with you because of what they do, and I've took a massive interest in them. And they're probably the two biggest ones who I've looked at recently. And maybe if you're looking slightly further than in the boys' game, there's quite a few that you'd look at in the boys' game. Dave Unsworth's one of the best I've worked with in terms of his detail, the way he works with his players, the standards he sets. He's one of the best coaches of a 4-4-2 I've seen. And he's someone who I look up to, and when I play a 4-4-2, which is a system I like playing, he's someone who his detail is unbelievable, and I'm not surprised he won on 223 titles in the space of 3 seasons, because the way he gets his players to operate and the detail he gives them is incredible. And he'd probably be another one, Dave Unsworth, Nick Cushion, but then obviously Dan Machichi comes to mind, because I tracked him when he was at England, when he was at MK Dons, because I just liked the way he worked. When I was on I think it might have been, I was on a course down at St George's Park, and he was working with the England players on the pitch at the time, and I went out and watched, and we just stood on the side and watched them work, and it was just the way his order about it was quality. And it's someone, obviously, when I watched his webinar yesterday was quality. So he'd probably be another one in terms of, you want to look at like practice design and stuff. He's very good.
Yeah, I shall do my best to try and get them on board and involved. Martin, I could generally speak to you for hours on end. It's always a pleasure when we catch up, mate. And I just want to say thank you for taking time out of your schedule and away from your family to speak to us today. I wish you, the players and the staff at Manchester United, all the best when the season resumes or kits back in. And just want to say take care, mate, and hopefully catch up soon.
No, definitely. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, Mart. No, it's a pleasure. I'll come on any time. I could sit here and speak football as much as I could. I'll sit here all night and do it. But yeah, no, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully people obviously come on and listen, and they keep supporting you in terms of your podcast with PCT. And I wish obviously you the best of luck with your career going forward, and obviously what comes up for you next. But yeah, hopefully people take things away from this and obviously come on and listen, which is the most important part, but support you as your company in terms of what you do in terms of your coaching, and I can't recommend you high enough in terms of what you do as a coach and what you do as a person. So no, I wish you all the best with your company, and then what your next step is in football. And I don't think it'll be long before you're back in.
Thank you,
well,
mate.
that's around the corner for you.
Very humbled by that high praise from yourself there, mate.
Not a problem.
Great, mate. Hopefully catch up soon, and I say everything stays safe. And
no problem. Cheers, Mark. Thanks very much.
Cheers, buddy.
Ductig brand is on hand for all of your coaching needs, whether it be to plan sessions or take notes whilst observing games. Ductig are able to cover all of your needs. Use the discount code Irvine20 at checkout to receive a discount. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoy the content that we're trying to bring to you. Don't forget, new episodes will be released every Monday. You can find us on the iTunes Store, Spotify, and if you want to see the video, you can see it on our YouTube channel, PCT Football Coaching.